Hi, Migara and Nevindaree. Welcome to the studio. And to introduce Migara is the CEO of MAGICBIT, yeah, and he will talk a little bit about MAGICBIT, what it is. And also Nevindaree, there we have, she's the Makers CEO. So we are from ISC Education, coming up with a new thing to Sri Lanka, and a new thing from ISC to Sri Lanka actually. So we'll talk about the companies as well as what is the program and the product eventually. So Migara, once again welcome, and can you talk a little bit about MAGICBIT and what it is and what is STEM education?
So basically, Harry, as we all know, the world is transforming very rapidly with the technology and all of this stuff we are hearing right now. And so the World Economic Forum and everyone is now forecasting that the children today have to learn differently, and they have to be equipped with different skill set to face this challenging future. And this is where this concept of STEM education has come up, because everybody is highlighting that the kids today will have to master innovation, creativity, problem solving skills like this. And this is why STEM education, or focusing more on science, technology, engineering, mathematics, this is not just to understand or learn the theories behind them. This is actually to experience them and how to build our know-how, practical know-how to apply these areas to solve problems more creatively. So this is the concept behind STEM education, and STEM or STEAM education with the arts elements added to it actually promotes this problem solving using these areas. And what we do at MAGICBIT is, now we also saw this trend of STEM education, and what we thought was, we are coming from a technical background, and so we thought how we can apply the technology, innovation and all that to solve these problems. So when we talk about technology nowadays, now everyone actually kind of the world was actually disrupted by technologies like AI very recently, but it has been there for a while. So what we thought was how we can apply these technologies like coding, robotics, AI, IoT, all these technologies to solve problems. And that's how we came up with this tool called MAGICBIT. It's actually a tool, and it supports STEM education as well, because it's a learning tool. Basically they can create stuff with it, like program it, create applications. So they will learn by doing, or practically implementing new solutions and finding new ways to solve problems. So that is the whole idea of MAGICBIT, and we have been doing this for around 4 years now. And we produce these devices in Sri Lanka, and we provide it to local market, we sell it to other countries. So we have a good user community now. And I believe, apart from all of that, what I like the most is the innovative projects the kids have done. Like some kids come up with new ways to, let's say, preserve corals, and some actually develop applications to, let's say, monitor climate change. So kids are thinking differently right now, because all of these kids are digital natives. They are born with technology. So when we empower them with a little bit of push, little bit of knowledge, they actually figure out new things and they create new innovations. And I believe that's what we are doing, and that's why we are trying to empower these kids with more knowledge and practical know-how and STEM education.
Perfect. And a little bit about Makers, Nevindaree.
Yeah, so added to what Migara also mentioned, so since he mentioned about World Economic Forum, so it clearly stated, like, by 2025 there will be over 85 million jobs get unfilled due to lack of certain skills like problem solving, critical thinking and creativity. So this is the problem. So all this time we were learning all these technology that are around there, but at the same time, to use this technology, it's quite important to improve certain skills that we have. Because always technology and people should be ahead of technology to refine and mold it. So even though we learn coding, even IoT, robotics, so when things are evolving, at the same time we should improve our skills to improve this technology in a better way to make this world sustainable and better place for all the human beings and all the living creatures. So this is why these skills are quite important. So since Migara mentioned about importance of robotics, coding and everything, at the same time, even though we are trying to push all these knowledge to kids, they should be able to enjoy it. But the problem is right now they don't have that culture, that they don't have that habit. So we really want to inculcate innovation as a habit. So this is what we are trying to do at the Makers. So we are creating them this platform where they can learn while enjoying the content and the curriculum that they are working on. So we have this Makers box. It has all the materials and tools that is required to conduct all these activities. And at the same time, on top of it, they have the online platform. It has all the content and the curriculum in very interactive manner. So if I say that we have this AI friend called Nova, so they can make interactive conversations. And also we have converted certain content into audio so that they can listen to this as a story. So we have two mascots, like Nova and Neo.
All right.
So on top of that, whenever they need further assistance, they can always get assistance from a coach as well. So this sort of platform that we deliver, why it's not just a virtual platform that we deliver. They have some activities so that they can improve their hands-on experience also. So we stimulate all the senses of the child. Then only they enjoy. And when they enjoy, only they practice that again and again. When they practice that, that becomes a habit. So this is a process. So this is where we as the Makers position our solution to make this innovation as a habit.
Understand, perfect. So I did have a look at the products as well, the MAGICBIT as well as the Makers, the box what we were talking about. So don't you think it is like sophisticated or complicated thing for a 4-year-old to get hands-on and try to, you know, get to that level? Because I'm sure that for 4 years I wouldn't have, I don't know whether you did, but I wouldn't have even thought about something like that. But the world has changed now. And being a medical doctor, I thought it could be a little complicated. What is your opinion in that? How easy or hard it is for someone to get adapted to, at that age, for them to get adapted to something like this?
So basically, now the tools that we are making, the hardware tools, the softwares and all that, to tell you honestly, to practice coding and to develop this stuff, usually the recommended age group is age 8 years and above.
Oh, okay.
But for the younger kids, what we would recommend is they can use it like the plug and play devices, just to play around with it and see what they can do. But
Okay.
Honestly, the coding stuff and the other technology innovation related stuff, the recommended age group, even with the hardware or even with the software and all, is 8 years and above.
And till what age they can go
So
up?
usually that can go up to, when we consider the school segment, it actually goes up to 8 to 18 years. But
Oh,
it can
okay.
be maybe
Beyond that
for
as well,
even
yeah.
elder kids as well. Like usually how we state, how we basically declare the age category for this sort of products is age 8 years above. Because basically even let's say a teacher who's maybe 30 or 35, so if they don't have any idea about this, so even they are new to this,
Correct,
right?
correct.
So even they can learn. So basically there's a minimum age of course, but there's no maximum age theoretically.
As such, okay. When it comes to Makers box, what is the age category and how convenient it is for students to get along with the product?
So we are mainly focusing on 4 to 15 years of age. But since we talked about STEM education and so-called STEAM education, so what they mentioned is, so if you can start that very early stage, so that would be ideal. Even if you check the market competitors, so they have products from 0 to 3 years, like 0 in the sense like, 2-3 months old child, a baby, toddler also can do certain activities. So where they get stimulated, like it can be something related to sensory activities. So that's how we improve the activities based on their age. Now if we take 4-year-old child, so based on their ability, capability, and also their hand and eye coordination, we develop our curriculum accordingly. So we are not giving them all the electronics and electrical technologies and techniques for them to try out. On top of that, what we do is we give them a certain experience and exposure so that they can feel, okay, so by doing this, that can happen. It's just like a child starts walking. So they start walking, they fall, and again they learn, so why is it happening in that way, the angle of the way that they put their feet. So everything they realize by themselves. It's not a theoretical thing. So by doing certain things, they understand. So we give that experience, we give that exposure through the makers activities, even though they are so small. 4-year-old child, sometimes we think like it's quite too advanced for a child to do something like that, but it is not. Even we have proven that by conducting these programs in preschools right now at the moment. So even 2.5-year-old kid, they are enjoying these activities. So that's how it is. So based on the age category, we develop the content and the curriculum accordingly, and every age group, they are gonna get different set of activities also on top of it.
Perfect. And so the most important thing what I wanted to discuss was, now when it comes to a preschool and when it comes to school, students are going to preschool as well as kids are going to school as well. So what is the difference when it comes to the STEAM or STEM education? Isn't it like taught at school as well, or like what we are trying to do is, I know we are going to be more intense, or it's going to be 100% activity based and all that. So why would someone do this while they're going to school or while they're going to preschool? Why is it so important?
So I think now even around the world, as of now, around 96 countries have adopted these STEM education concepts into their government curriculums as well. So even in Sri Lanka, they are trying to implement it, but it's not yet there. So the governments and the authorities, they have identified that this has some value and they are trying to incorporate it in every country. Apart from that, in every country, it's popularly actually implemented as after school programs, or maybe summer camps, weekend programs. It could be either from the schools or maybe from the other institutions. So these have come up as like extra curricular activities, even similar to sports and other stuff. So there's a trend like that. I think why it has emerged so predominantly in the other countries and everywhere as such is mainly because the world has come to a level where knowledge is kind of very abundant now. Let's say if you want to make a clay pot or a glass statue, you can basically Google that and see a video on YouTube and see how it's done, right? Or maybe if you want to know how they actually make a rocket or how it works, you can Google and find it out. But the problem is no one can do that because there's a problem with the practical know-how right now. And that's where even the doctors are very special. Even this technical era and all that, it's very hard to replicate the practical know-how of a doctor. So similarly, in every profession now or in every field, this practical know-how has the most significance as of now in this knowledge dominated and knowledge abundant world. And that is where STEAM education has become very important, where it actually provides kids this practical exposure or experiential learning, and mainly how to do something in a more practical way from an early age. And that is why even every country is trying to adopt these concepts. And I see that in many countries they have implemented it as part of the curriculum, so they will do it during the school time in the classroom. Even in Sri Lanka, there are few international schools trying to implement that, but in most schools all around the world, they are actually conducted as after school programs, and there are many private institutions conducting these programs. So the parents and students, everyone has seen this value, and that's why they are directing the students to these programs as well, and that's why it has gained such popularity as well.
Understood. What is your opinion, Nevindaree?
So I totally agree with Migara on what he said, and also on top of that, so sometimes people might wondering what is the difference between STEM and STEAM. So STEM or STEAM, so basically at the end of the day what we are trying to do is understanding the nature and how it works around us. So this is what we try to do with STEM also. So STEM in the sense science, technology, engineering and mathematics. With A, we are trying to bring aesthetic subjects, arts, drawing, painting, music. So what we are trying to do is, while we are developing the IQ of a child, at the same time we are trying to develop the emotional intelligence of the child as well. This is why this STEAM comes in. And why it is really important, just like Migara mentioned, so all this time we were talking about this industrial age. Then that has come to a level that we consider that as information age. So knowledge was power at that time, and the analytical thinking was the power. Then AI came. So analytical thinking, it's not a huge thing for human being right now. When you provide data, you get all things analyzed. So right now at the moment we are in the imagination age. This is where creativity, imagination is so powerful. So this is why it's quite important for parents to give this knowledge to their kids, especially to develop these skill set. And on top of all that, another thing that I want to mention is, now people might think now in schools we learn science, mathematics and ICT. So what is the difference that this brings in? Again, we are talking about science, technology and everything. But in school, with the way that we learn, with the traditional education system that we learn, like Migara mentioned, it's so theoretical, you memorize, you write the exam and that's it. And every subject, we work in all these subjects in a silo. So they don't see the connection. You have to feel the connection, then only you can understand how this works, then only you can pivot or refine certain processes, and then you can utilize technology to make things better in an effective and efficient way. So this is what we are trying to do. So just like I mentioned earlier, when you don't practice it, sometimes these skills gonna get redundant.
So a student who handles the STEAM or STEM well with one of the institutions, they would do well in school. That's what you're referring to. Will it reflect in school as well?
Yes, even in their day-to-day life also. It's not just in school. So that's the difference, because they have this analytical, apart from the analytical thinking, the problem solving skills. So when they see a problem, they always try to come up with a solution with the exposure that they have around it. They know how to empathize it. So empathy is one of the main things that we learn also in this STEM or STEAM process. When they understand that, when they understand a problem, when they can empathize it, they feel it better. And they can apply certain technologies and tools in a better way. And also on top of it, the reason why we tell that the kid can perform so well in the education system, it's not just about the theory that they learn. So they know how to apply it when they learn STEAM. So I can even give you an example. So when we were conducting some programs in universities, especially for female students, these are undergrads that we are talking about from engineering and even science faculties. So when we give them certain activities for them to conduct, some of them even don't know how to find the positive or the negative side of the battery to connect that into a circuit. But we all learned that during grade 9. Because we have this electronic, we learn that on the science subject. But they haven't done that in a practical manner. So they don't know. And that's the same reason when you see certain gadgetics out there, especially female students, they don't tend to work on it. They always hand it over to a guy over there. So we really want to change this mindset also on top of it. So I'm just being so specific about female students, but we see the same thing when it comes to male students also right now.
All right, thank you. Yes, so we have all the gadgets, almost a few of the gadgets here. So Migara, for me, when I saw these also, I was also a bit excited, and I was thinking, that's what the question I asked. How come the kids from 4 years to 12 years, or even from 8 years to 12, how can they make these things? About the circuits and all that. So I don't think I can do it. So what do you think, and how easy, or if you talk about the MAGICBIT, how it works?
So basically now even this model we have built using some of the plug and play items.
Okay.
So what we have done is even these circuit modules and all, so we have integrated them into single circuit boards plus some pluggable modules. So when it comes to developing these applications also, kids can do it like step by step. So we have built these guidelines and all that. So they can plug the motors. They might have to figure out where to fix the wires and all that. So, but it's actually part of the process.
All right.
But when it comes to connecting this stuff or programming this stuff, so it's not that hard now, because most of these steps are kind of very simplified with the technology today. So even for an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old, they can pretty much do it. But honestly, when we were schooling, it actually took us around 20 to 30 years to
figure this out. Correct.
But
exactly.
now even we have seen that even 8-year-olds, even 10-year-olds can do this very quickly, and they also figure out. And whenever we actually, let's say, we teach them how to move forward this car, basically they figure out how to turn it, how to, let's say, send it in reverse mode and all that. So we actually encourage them to figure it out. So they can test it out, try out, maybe fail, and then learn. So that's also part of the process. So
how long normally a person would learn this, to figure this out in a class? Say 2 hours. They can manage this, yeah?
So basically, even with MAGICBIT, what we have done is, now we have developed certain set of activities, like 100 odd activities they can do with MAGICBIT. Now each of these activities are designed for a 1 hour period. Basically, a student can do any of these activities within a period of 1 to 2 hours. Of course, there could be some complex activities, so they have to gradually go through this journey where they will learn the basics, try out some simple activities first, then they will be able to develop like complex stuff. Let's say maybe controlling something from your mobile phone with voice control and all that.
Okay.
So even that sort of stuff they can do. But when they actually build their skill and knowledge, so they can do it. But all of these activities, we have specifically designed this to be done within 1 to 2 hour period. Because let's say if we design a very complex application which takes more than like 3 to 4 hours,
then they might
lose the interest, the curiosity and all that. On the other hand, kids also have to see a result of what they are doing, a positive result after engaging with this one. So, and on the other hand, even this STEM education heavily promotes this sort of activity-based learning. So not only they are actually let's say developing this sort of a small car or a plant watering system or something like that. So by doing that, they basically learn about the concepts behind this. Let's say how to read a sensor, how to program a sensor, or when they have to program, okay, what is a variable, how they can build a logic. Honestly, none of this stuff is about the technology or programming or anything like that. Actually, what we are doing is problem solving. Basically applying logic, step-by-step logic to solve a problem. So that is what all this is about.
Which is important. Yeah, correct. And makers, I know I see a lot of things. So what are these? How they can get along with these things, these little ones?
Yeah. So even as you can see, there are multiple products under the makers umbrella. Again, just like Migara mentioned, so there are many ways for us to learn STEM education. So here we are mainly focusing on robotics and IoT, but it's not just learning technology, but using that we try to improve certain skills of the child. So likewise, here also we are trying to improve certain skills. So there also what we are trying to do is improve the problem solving skills, critical thinking and creativity. So if I take one example, so we have this automatic catapult. So by working on that, they're going to learn how to assemble it and at the same time how the electricity works. And there are new components like a push button and a gear motor. And by doing this activity, they'll learn about the concepts behind the lever. So we teach all that also on top of the activity. Then they remember that why? Because they have built that.
Correct.
By themselves. Even if we take this walking board, at the same time they understand how a slider works. And also it's a nice example for biomimicry. So we learn all these things, but now they can see that, and also they witness and they experience it by themselves. So this is what we are trying to do on top of all that. And it's not just magic. So when they see a gear motor, sometimes they don't know how it works. They only know that by providing electricity it works. but how this gear motor works, we teach them that also. So for you to work on a gear motor, so you have to get a proper understanding about magnetism.
Correct, okay.
And then polarity. So even we teach them that. So we have certain activities for them to learn that also. Then they know. And even when they start working on a complex solution, let's say it's a robotic solution, then they actually know how it works rather than just plug and play. Knowing these basics is quite important for them to change the game in the world, because they actually know how it works. In most cases, even in IT world, something that we have noticed, like very recently, sometimes they know, so buying, bringing certain rubber glasses and all these classes and everything. So I think IT guys can understand this. They see some of the technologies and new components that they can bring in, but underneath that, how it actually works, if they don't know it, sometimes they are not going ahead with the most optimum solution that they have.
Definitely.
So this is why we are giving them this knowledge, so they understand the basic and then they can apply that to whatever it takes. Now even here for this solution and the MAGICBIT solution, so then they improve the computational thinking, the sequential thinking in certain ways, and why it is working in that particular way. So we give that basic.
So if when it comes to student with learning difficulty, or a student in a class, you might find a student who's like really extraordinary and who's very good in theory or very good in practical, or different kind of student sets, different kind of skills you find. So all of them are going to do one of the activities on their own. So it's going to be activity-based learning. So how do you cope up if a student is having a difficulty in learning in school? So how this will help them to open that door and think different, and how does it work? Have you all
I think one of the trickiest parts we have to figure out when we are developing these products is now, even when we were schooling, I think you might also can recall there were like couple of students in every class who are really good in tech. They are really into these gadgets and all that, but not many of them.
Correct.
So there were mainly couple of students. Now the challenge even for the educators and even for us is, we have to figure out a way how we can teach this to every child in different knowledge levels, because in every class or in any community, students even at the same age, they are at different knowledge levels.
Correct, yes, exactly.
So basically we are trying to figure out new ways how we can simplify this technology or whatever the activity we are doing. We have to simplify it, plus we have to make it more engaging, more fun, and we have to preserve the learning quality and the learning objectives as well. So that is something we are also trying to do, make it very less complex, very simple, easy to use. So by doing those things, what we are trying to do is make it more friendly for every child at every knowledge level. Because now, for example, I believe now there have been studies very recently where they actually teach coding even for the kids with autism and this sort of some disabilities sometimes, or differently abled kids, and there are some surprising results where some of these kids who failed in the traditional education path, sometimes they can actually focus more on this sort of activity based learning and learn the concepts, and also by doing that they develop the practical skill that we mentioned earlier. So in one way, we are trying to make it more generalized, more friendly for every kid, so they can practice it and they can learn it. And on the other hand, I believe that it actually helps in their other education related stuff, because it builds logical thinking, critical thinking and creativity, as Nevin mentioned. So those things helps in their normal educational path as well, because I believe now even when they go to higher education, let's say to university, now even Harvard or MIT or whatever the best university in the world, they will not teach you how to do something practically. Basically, all these educational institutions, they'll teach you how to develop your theoretical knowledge, the fundamentals, and all that. And it's very, very important to learn those. I'm not saying that it's bad. It's actually very important to learn the fundamentals, the theories and all that. On the other hand, it's important to learn the practical aspect of it. That none of these universities are teaching. That is actually up to the student or up to an individual to build that skill. And that is where this sort of things actually help the kids from an early age to develop that habit of doing these things, and also to develop that curiosity to do that. And we are trying to make it something relevant for every kid, and that is the whole idea, the underlying concept of developing this stuff.
Perfect. And when it comes to, say, let's conclude, but when it comes to all sort of this learning, how convenient or easy it is for a child to learn it online? Now I know some way you and I didn't learn it online, but now after the COVID, that trend has changed, and students more towards online platforms as well. So how this is 100% activity based learning? Can this be taught online, and can they learn it online?
Before that, I really want to add a few things for what Migara mentioned about how we can bring this to a level where everyone can access this knowledge in a certain way. Normally we call this category like neurodivergent students. Still we are not 100% successful in that space, but we are working together with multiple entities even right now at the moment, and we are supporting some of the parents who have kids with autism, ADHD, because when it comes to ADHD, it's really difficult. Their attention span is so low, and if you give them a 30 minutes activity, you can't keep them there and work on that. So you have to be so creative. As an educator, you have to be so creative so that they sit and they work on it in a very enjoyable manner. So we are working on it right now, and we have some success stories as well, especially when it comes to autism. They love some activities because we have to identify the interest area. Every child is different. It's not just the neurodiversity or neurodivergent that we are talking about. So this is why we develop these solutions in a way that they can learn all these things in their own pace. So they get the activity, they can build that by themselves, so they don't have to do in the same pace that others are doing, and they have all the content available all the time, and when they feel like it, they can work on it. And at the same time, we have to understand what are the interested areas that they have. So we have to keep pushing all this content so that they like it and then they work on it. So all these things we have integrated into this solution. So we are not leaving them behind. We really want to bring them also to the same space that we are working on, and right now we are being successful in that space also.
All right. So when it comes to the online part.
Yeah. So my personal opinion is, so I'm not a huge fan that when it comes to this sort of learning, keeping all these things to online platform. So that's why we are going ahead with this sort of hybrid model to stimulate all the senses, just like I mentioned. Sometimes in a way, like people do talk about AR and VR, so augmented reality and virtual reality. So even we call it as mixed reality, like XR. We can do certain things, but at the same time, sometimes the senses that I was talking about, you have to feel it, you have to work on it, then only you realize what sort of an impact that you can create on that particular object and how you can change certain things. So this is the same reason why we are bringing up with this sort of a solution. But through online platform, there are so many things that you can learn, because there are so many changes that you can bring in, just like the technologies that I just told you. And also we can bring gamification, so they enjoy the content while they are learning, and they have some sort of targets that they can achieve, and they can also collaborate and communicate with other students also on this platform. That's another thing. Sometimes right now, when we were kids, we in the evening after school hours, we played with like 20 to 30 kids in the evening. Right now, when you go to a parent and ask how they enjoy the evening time, it's mostly the tuition classes, so they don't have any other friends around them to
Correct.
play around. So at least if you can create such an environment through this online platform where they can share their creations and collaborate and communicate, that's another advantage that we see through the online platform. Through the gamification, they understand the level that they are in, they can evaluate, self-evaluate themselves as well. So there are so many things that we can do, so many wonders that we can do with the online platform.
So with the ISC branches, I send these products to the branches so students can come there and they start making it, but the teaching can be taught online.
Yeah.
That can be done. So
Yes.
that's what we are talking about. All right. So anything else do you think to this community and for this team or STEM community or the students and the parents who you would like to say through ISC podcast?
So I think just to add something for the last point that you were discussing, I believe now this sort of experiential learning now, since now you are also integrating these products and practical learning for the STEM programs. So in that case, actually the kids can get the items delivered to their household or even come to a center, and the educational content can be delivered online, and because these kids are quite used to online education during the COVID period and all that, so sometimes, and it's very convenient for them as well without commuting and all that. So online programs could be a more practical way if we can deliver it effectively. So as you mentioned, it can be done. And on the other hand, I believe that in Sri Lanka, so this concept of STEM education has emerged very recently, and I think it has been, the word has gained popularity during the last 2 to 3 years. So even now, I don't think there's a lot of penetration in the market, and mostly the parents are not aware about it. And I believe that they have to understand these concepts, and they have to understand the importance of this for their children, and they have to direct their children towards this stuff. Because one thing we have to realize is, let's say for the past 30-40 years, we have not done things correctly, and that's why Sri Lanka as a state come to this stage as well. Therefore, we can't fail the future generations, right? So we have to make them future ready. And I believe that STEM education is something we can, where we can make our future generation ready for the challenging future. And if we actually equip them, empower them, they will be in par with the present world and the generations from other countries. And that's what I believe, and I think even ISC, MAGICBIT makers, we all are trying to do that. So I kindly request all of the audience who are listening to the podcast, so they can spread this word around, and they can actually encourage the kids and parents, everyone to get involved with this.
Yeah, and to conclude.
Yeah. So while echoing the same thing that Migara has mentioned, so earlier we were having certain designations and job roles in our head, like when you become older, so this is the person that you want to become. But these jobs roles are getting redundant right now. So there are certain skills that we really need to improve. So this was what we were discussing all this time. And parents know that things are changing rapidly. They understand it. That's why they are kind of pushing their kids so hard to learn new things. But we should do that in a right way. So that's the main thing that we really need to think about right now, having a proper awareness of what exactly we should deliver for our child. So by understanding that, I hope by watching this podcast, they will realize what sort of skills that they really need to improve and how can they do that, and what are the sources and resources that are out there to make that happen. And apart from that, the other thing is we really need to have people, a future workforce who can understand the problems and solve problems in a better way rather than complicating things that we already have. So this is a nice way to make that happen. And like Migara mentioned, if we taught them the right way all this time, we don't have this much of brain drain in the country. True. And also on top of that, that's why when people see a problem, they always go ahead with the suboptimal solution that they have rather than solving problems. So do we really want to create such a generation in the future? So think about that and let's change the future.
Yeah. So to conclude from ISC podcast, so this is not going to be a school. You're not going to learn your alphabets. You're not going to learn your like, what you learn in school, you're not going to learn here. So it's going to be 100% activity-based learning. And so you can join. The classes are going to be on weekends, and you will have more information in the upcoming slides. Thank you very much, and stay tuned.